Hello, everybody. This is Pastor Willie, and this is the encouraging word for today. Everybody has strengths and weaknesses, and often our strengths can become weaknesses if they are taken to an extreme. Let me use myself as an example. This is my Friday confession. One of my strengths is leadership. I can organize things. I can act quickly. I can make decisions on the spot. And I'm usually right in my opinion. And it's very useful to have those traits. I'm not afraid to make a decision. But it can be a weakness because I can seek to control everything and not wait for God's plan to unfold. The verse for today really spoke to me and reminded me of the need to commit things to God and wait for His plan to unfold. Listen to Acts chapter 14, verse 23, and then verse 26. Paul and Barnabas appointed elders for each of them in each church, and with prayer and fasting committed them to the Lord in whom they had put their trust. Verse 26, from Attalia they sailed back to Antioch, where they had been committed to the grace of God for the work they had now completed. It amazes me. What amazes me is that phrase, that they committed them to the Lord in whom they had put their trust. You see, they appointed these people, they trained these people, but then there came a point where they had to release them and commit them to the Lord to do the work to which they had placed them to do. There were no cell phones in those days. There was no email. There was no instant communication. There was no YouTube videos. There was no Zoom. They just had to totally release them to the Lord and trust that God was going to do His work in them and through them. That's what I have a difficult time doing. I would want to micromanage, watch over how everything is going, give advice when advice is needed or even when it's not needed. But there are times in life when God wants us to just commit something to Him. And I believe they were able to do that, trust God, commit these people to God, because the same thing had happened to them. When they were in Antioch, they were called by God, and then they were sent off. And it says they returned to Antioch, where they had been committed to the grace of God for the work they had now completed. So Paul and Barnabas had been committed to God for the work to which they had been called. And the people at Antioch had no way to connect with them, no way to advise them, no way to control them. But they committed them to God and prayed for them as they were led. And now they had completed the work and came back to report that it had been completed. When we commit something to God, in whatever the situation is, God takes over. When we micromanage, God can't do His work. And God's work sometimes takes time. We have to trust. We have to let the control go and release it to God so He can do His work. The question for me is, can I commit something to the Lord and let Him do His work? Of course, we do what we can and what we must do. In all situations, we must do our part, what we can do. But the rest, we leave it in God's hands, It's not an excuse not to do anything. But there are things that we cannot do, we cannot accomplish, so we leave it in God's hands. Some of those examples will be in other person's decisions. I can pray for them, I can advise them, then if it comes to the point, I have to leave them in God's hands. Let God direct them. In certain situations in life, I can do whatever I can, maybe to resolve a conflict, maybe to heal a relationship. Excuse me. I do my part. Then I have to just commit the rest to God to do his part. Healing. I pray for healing. And then I just commit myself to God. I pray for certain ministry to come about. I pray for conviction in somebody's heart, for change. And I do my part, and I pray that I have to just release it to God, commit it to God, trusting that he will do his work, letting God work. And the danger is that we do not wait for God's plan to unfold. That's the danger. So the question for you and for me is, what situation or what person, what circumstance in your life do you need to just commit to the Lord today and let go and trust that God will do his work in his time? God bless you, and I'll see you again on Monday. Have a great weekend.